Hello. Today is, well, at least here in New Zealand, it's the afternoon of the 22nd of April, which is uh, Record Store Day. Was it World Record Store Day or just Record Store Day? I don't know sure. So if you're watching this, you probably already know that maybe, but if you don't, it's kind of I think it was started about 15, 20 years ago as a day to uh, appreciate record stores. Maybe it was in the period where it kind of yeah, it's 2007, so it's 16 years ago. So it was, yeah, to appreciate record stores, specifically independent record stores. And I guess in that time, 2007, that was kind of the time when, at least here in New Zealand, I guess this would have been the same in most of the Western world, was you, you were seeing the last of the chain record stores closing down. Because I left New Zealand in 2006 to work overseas, and in the 2 or so years I was away working, I remember coming back about 2008, 2009, and there were basically no more record stores, chain record stores. Um, and what was left were the few independent record stores, and that is what Record Store Day in particular focuses on, the appreciation or the celebration of independent record stores, because that's basically all that's left, isn't it? Um, in any country. Oh no, sorry, not any country, because if you've been to Japan, you'll know that chain record stores are still alive and thriving there. They are the one major market that bucks international trends and to do with physical media. Although that may even be changing there now. But I was last there in 2019, and even then, it was still, the six story tower records in Shibuya, and the all the other ones you might have heard about around the place were still going strong. But anyway, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm looking here today at album by Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Deaf, which was what, 2001, I reckon, 2001, 2002. And you can see this is a second-hand copy. This is the second copy I've owned. I own this new, and the copy that I bought new was a two CD set. It had a bonus disc of live performances, a DVD of live performances. I remember it was two different sets, just mini sets. One of the sets, Dave Grohl was drumming. The other set, Dave Grohl wasn't drumming. But this album came out, and they had before this they had Rated R, and Rated R did pretty well, and it kind of got them into the mainstream, or at least noticed by the mainstream, because Josh Homme had been relatively well known before, not well known within certain circles. Like he played with Caius and with the Screaming Trees a little bit, and so this was his band, and so it wasn't as though they were a completely unknown entity. But this is certainly, this album here, Songs to the Deaf, was the one that really they blew up on. This, from my memory, was a pretty big deal. Not absolutely massive, but there were people saying, "Oh, the next Nirvana." I remember that getting thrown around. Remember, there was a time in the early 2000s where every band was the next Nirvana. I remember that was used to describe at the drive-in, Queens of the Stone Age, the Strokes. Uh, there's someone else as well. There was another band that, yeah, the next Nirvana. Because remember, there was we the I guess rock music community was looking for that, because there had been up until that time a kind of a cycle of, so let's say if you had the birth of rock music, late 50s, like Chuck Berry or whatever, Bill Haley, then into the 60s, you had the Beatles and I guess the British invasion, and then through into the 70s, you had, I guess, prog rock, glam rock, through to the late 70s, the punk, whatever you want to call it, the birth of punk. Then into the 80s, you had metal. Uh, I guess the late 70s you had metal as well, but it's certainly into the 80s you had kind of the evolution, and the kind of metal became mainstream, and then hair metal, and then 1991 you had kind of the alternative rock grunge explosion. And so there'd kind of been almost like these 10-year cycles kind of that had built up into like these kind of like things, a sea change in the culture and of rock music. And so when we got to 2000, people, Nirvana was 91, and Kurt Cobain died in 94. So people thought, okay, around 2000, 2001, 2002, we're due for another kind of new thing, a new huge band that's going to take over the world. And it didn't really happen, did it? No, it was certainly nowhere near to the level of Nirvana. And there were bands who sold as much as Nirvana, I'm sure. Maybe not as much, but so it sold millions of records. But certainly no band had the cultural impact on society that those kind of other movements I had said that preceded, like punk and grunge and so on and so forth. And so the music media and the music industry and fans were kind of like on the lookout. And I guess there was that the music band kind of scene, kind of those New York rock and roll, garage rock, like the Strokes and who else, the Years and I guess the White Stripes, and that didn't really come to anything really, did it? That kind of burnt itself out pretty quickly. And if we look at that now, 20 years removed, it had it was kind of almost just like a blip on the radar. It had none of the movers and shakers of that movement went on to doing anything major. I'm not saying that I like all those bands. I like the Strokes. I like Julian Casablancas. I love his I talked about it last week. I got my second copy of his solo album, and I like the Years, and I like Jack White. But we would be lying to ourselves if we said that they had any kind of real impact on society at large beyond their circle of fans. And part of that is to do with just the way culture is consumed now, that everything is very diffused. There isn't one, everyone kind of consumes their own media, what they like, because we have streaming and the internet and things. It's not like there isn't kind of mass social movements like there were in the past, because in the old days everyone kind of consumed the same thing. You'd go home after school and everyone would watch the same TV shows on the main networks, or see the same movie releases that came out at the cinema. And now shit's being released every day, in 30 different places. And so it's, everyone likes what they like, and there's not really one thing that kind of captures the youth as it used to. Jesus, what a ramble. But there was a short period, I don't think anyone ever really seriously considered this to be true, but that these guys were touted as the next Nirvana. A great, great band, Queens of the Stone Age, don't get me wrong, and a brilliant, brilliant album. But even if we just not even talk about the music, they were never in the conversation, I think, to be the next Nirvana. So this was still the era when Nick Oliveri was still in the band. Kind of Josh Homme and Nick Oliveri were kind of the mainstays of the band, and everyone else kind of rotated in and out. That didn't last because Nick Oliveri ended up getting, I guess, kicked out. It seemed that Josh Homme had the final say, because he's in the band and Nick Oliveri isn't. And from interviews and press, there's been comment that Nick Oliveri would like to be back in the band, but Josh doesn't want him to be for whatever reason. So I guess the other big story about this album when it came out was Dave Grohl's the drummer. He's drumming on the album, and this is the first album. That's not true, but kind of like, again, that kind of thing of Nirvana, the next Nirvana. Dave Grohl's even drumming on it, and that kind of was I think they used that a lot in the marketing of this, um, because really, you think about it, is marketing an album as this drummer's on it. It's the drummer that's being used for that marketing must be pretty important, because usually the drummer is pretty way down the list on what people care about when they're buying an album. But yeah, Dave Grohl is Dave Grohl, and he's beloved by certain people, and so I guess people want to hear his drumming. Here's the cymbal. This kind of folds out, and there you have Nick Oliveri, Dave Grohl, Josh Homme, and that's Mark Lannegan. And you have the inside dashboard of the car and the, I guess, another symbol of Queens of the Stone Age on the gear stick. And little mentions of the song: go with the flow, deaf, loud, louder. There's not any other kind of liner notes on that at all. So the band was kind of interesting, is because they had multiple singers, and they still do. The music they make. It was, I think, especially this era, they kind of seemed like an ensemble. There wasn't, even though Josh Homme was kind of, I guess, de facto lead singer and lead frontman, but they had enough other stuff going on that it seemed like one of those bands, kind of like a little bit like how Mastodon does nowadays. Mastodon almost has 3 frontmen, because they do share the vocal duties between Brown, the drummer, Brent, the lead guitarist, and Troy, the bassist. I think even, what's the other guitarist's name? Jesus, that's disrespectful. I can't remember the second guitarist's name. Guy with the sideburns and sometimes a handlebar moustache. Bill. I think even he sings on some of the songs. So I like that. That's kind of an interesting aspect. We're having a band where you have not one main focus. Everyone kind of has a turn of being up front and of being the voice of the band and of writing lyrics and things. I think it's quite cool. So we got the first song there. You think I ain't worth $1, but I feel like a millionaire. And that's a really awesome starter. Like one of the best opening tracks of the album that I can think of. Kind of starts off like super high energy, great drum beat, boop, 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 boop. And it's a Nick Oliveri lead vocal song. I think maybe Josh does some part of the vocals as well, but it's like quite screams, like especially the verses, but really high energy. It gets you really pumped up, that song. Then No One Knows is track 2, and that was kind of the first single, and I guess probably the most well-known song of the album. And the video for that got played to death. If you remember, it's kind of like they're on a hunting trip or something, and they end up getting hunted by the deer, and their heads hung on the lodge wall. First It Giveth, that's a great song. Song for the Dead, I think that's a Lannegan sung one. Sky is Falling, 6-shooter, that's an Oliveri one. Hanging Tree, that's definitely Mark Lannegan. That's a great song. Round the Hanging Tree, swaying in the breeze. Go with the Flow, another single. That's Josh Homme's song, and that's another like kind of really good rock song. Sometimes you just want a straight ahead rock song without, I don't know. Sometimes if you want that, it's almost you by default you get something like Nickelback, because just rock. Not many bands do just rock, straight ahead rock like that, really, when you think about it nowadays. But if they do it, they tend to be kind of shit. But I think these guys do that pretty well. They can do quite left field stuff as well, but I think they do the straight ahead rock really well as well. And yeah, Go With The Flow is an example of that. Gonna Leave You, that's a Nick Oliveri song as well. Do It Again. God Is in the Radio, which is the one where one of the Ween guys was on it. I think that was Another Love Song. It's just another love song. I think Dean Ween. Which one's Dean? He's the guitarist, isn't he? Mickey. I think he's playing guitar on that. There's no liner notes on this, so I can't check for sure. And then we've got Song for the Deaf. And then 2 hidden tracks, the Mosquito song and Everyone's Gonna Be Happy. Produced by Hosh Homme, Eric Valentine, with additional production by Hosh Homme and Adam Casper. Adam Casper, someone you see his name pop up a lot. I know he worked with Soundgarden. I think he worked with Soundgarden on Down on the Upside, 1996. So anyway, like I said, I got the secondhand A code from Real Groovy Records, so that probably would have been between $5 and $8, I would guess. And I did own it new when it first came out back in 2002. I bought it brand new, and like I said, it had a bonus DVD with live performances on it. I think it's a pretty great album. It's, for me, it's easily the best Queens of the Stone Age albums, because Queens of the Stone Age has made a lot of other good albums, but I feel that they have these patches in some of their albums that can be quite throwaway, quite forgettable. But this one is kind of beginning to end. There isn't a bad song on it. It has kind of a concept throughout it. It's like the first thing you hear when you track one is the turning on the car, like the ignition of a car, and the radios. So it's like you're driving and you're listening to the radio, and as it's going across different, I think it's going to be from LA to the desert, because they're from, or at least Josh is from the desert, from, what's it, Palm Desert, the California desert near to Los Angeles, whatever that area is called. He's from there, so I think it's meant to be the drive from there to there, imagining you're listening to the radio and hearing different songs. And it does that quite well as well, kind of a very cohesive group of songs that go together well. The things that came after this, like the one after this, Lullabies to Paralyzed, that's got some really good songs on it as well. Great songs. But it's not as solid as this. Era Vulgaris, I feel, is their weakest album. Like Clockwork, that was pretty great. I would say like Clockwork was almost on the level as Songs for the Deaf. And it reminds me of it as well, because they both got almost all red covers with a little bit of black on it. And then their most recent one, which was what was the most recent one? Villains. I haven't listened to that a whole lot. That's the one with John Theodore drummed on it. But I haven't listened to it a whole lot, so I can't comment too much on that one, because I haven't really formed an opinion about it. I haven't listened enough to it to form an opinion. But yeah, it's a great album by a very good band, as opposed to a very good album by a great band. So I said I bought this from Real Groovy Records. Real Groovy Records is an independent record store here in Auckland, New Zealand. There aren't many of them here. I've talked about this a little bit before in some of my other videos. There's a handful of them. And today, like I said, is Record Store Day. So I see I follow most of the record stores in Auckland on Instagram. So I see most of them posted their events that they had for Record Store Day. And I saw 2 of them had like lines out the door and round the corner up the street. And today it's a really shitty rainy day here. So they were, people still came out to brave the weather to attend Record Store Day festivities. And I saw things like, it's, as with everything nowadays, it's all based around vinyl. But they have, a lot of bands have special releases for Record Store Days, like kind of limited runs of things, and they have special things like, so I guess people know what they're looking for, and that's why they're lined up. I know Metallica was doing a big Record Store Day thing to coincide with 72 Seasons being released last week, which I had listened through too, and not bad. I need to listen to it more to really get a full grasp on it, but I think it's not bad. It's I think it's in the vein of the last 2 that have come before it, Death Magnetic and Hardwired. But yeah, I would have liked to maybe go to some Record Store Day thing today, but it looked very crowded everywhere. And also, I'm looking after my son today. He's in the other room right now playing with his Super Mario Lego. And I know he would have been bored to tears if I made him come and stand with me inside a record shop, flicking through, trying to find something I want to buy. And like I said, the majority of the stuff that they have that's worth going to try and find is all on vinyl. So, yeah. But maybe if you're watching this, you might be interested in attending in your country, which I'm sure uh, it's maybe coming towards the morning in some countries where people are watching this, and I'm sure there are things planned at record stores in your city as well. Anyway, uh, Songs for the Deaf, Queens of the Stone Age. Thanks for watching.